In this tutorial, we're going to use Photoshop CC 2020 to use our selection tools to create kind of a fruit mascot. So this is really a practice in removing items from their backgrounds, working with layers, and kind of playing with how to bring different elements from a lot of different pieces together. So let's go ahead and start with our background. Let's go ahead and go into Bridge, and you should go ahead and download the assets from the drive that are marked face. Within face, you're going to find several different things. Most of these have some type of background on it that you're going to be cutting off using a variety of different tools. Let's go ahead and grab this background first. I'm in Bridge, and let's do a file open with, and let's go ahead and grab Photoshop. Let's do an image size. So we go ahead and take a peek at how big this is. So we can tell by looking at this, it's 12 by 12, so unless we're making scrapbook pages, it's probably too big for what we need to have. So let's go ahead and make it 6 inches by 6 inches, 300, and preserve details 2.0, and say OK. Let's do a file save as. Let's do a first initial last name, underscore food face or fruit face, and go ahead and save it as a JPEG, or as a PSD, and say save. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and take a peek at our base for this element. So our base for this element is going to be a cantaloupe. So I'm going to go into Bridge, and we'll come down here, it says food, and it's got a melon. So what I can do is go drag it down from Bridge, go straight into Photoshop, and bring it up into my tabs, and it'll open it up as a separate tab. So there's a few different ways we could go about selecting this one. We could just do try a magic eraser, but we'd still end up with part of this shadow here at the bottom. We could try the elliptical marquee, but it doesn't work quite as well, so we're going to use quick selection. Let's go ahead and unlock the layer. Let's go up here to the top in our tools panel and grab our quick selection tool. If you're on your first tool, it just means I'm going to make a new selection. If you're going to add to it, you can put that +1. So let's do this first one. Let's leave our enhance edges on, and let's go ahead and select the entire melon. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Now I want to go ahead and select everything but. So I'm going to go into select and come down here to inverse, because I want to delete everything off the background. So I'm going to go ahead and hit delete. If you still had that layer locked, it would have given you a different kind of fill. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and turn my dancing ants off with a Control D, and I want to go ahead and rotate it. So let's go image and transform, and let's go ahead and rotate 90 degrees clockwise. So I go ahead and get that stem kind of at the top. I'm going to go ahead and grab that layer now and highlight it. I'm going to click and drag up over my Oser fruit face and bring it on down into my element to make this kind of my main base I'm going to build my face off of. So you can grab that move tool and move things around. Now I've got my show transform controls on, which allows me to see those grabbers so I can change this. If you don't have that, you can go in and do a T or a Control T. Let's do back to move, do a Control T and undo. I got text instead. Escape, undo, and let's go ahead. Alright, transform is Control T. I had Control T. It didn't like me. Alright, let's go back to a Control T. There we go. So Control T will go ahead and give you those show transform if you don't have those already showing. I like to have them already showing if you can. Alright, so the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is do Control S and save what we've got so far as for our fruit face. I'm going to go ahead and close my melon because I don't need it anymore, and I don't need to save the changes. So I'm going to go ahead and close that one. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and play with the eyeballs. So let's go ahead to our Bridge and grab this carrot slice, and we can do a right click, open with, and Photoshop. And we can go ahead and unlock it. On this one, we're going to go ahead and use our quick actions. So in our properties panel, under quick actions, you should have one that says select subject. So we're going to go ahead and hit select subject, and it's going to go ahead and figure out what is the main thing from here. So that's exactly what I want. Let's do the same thing again, and we can actually just do a copy, Control C to copy, come over here to my fruit face and do a Control V to paste, and it's going to go ahead and bring in that carrot for me. It's pretty big. I'm going to do a Control Plus so I can zoom in. I'm going to hold Shift and my mouse and bring it down so I can make that just a little bit smaller because I don't need the eyeball to take up the entire face. And when I'm happy with it, I'm going to hit check and call it good. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab, I want something for kind of the middle of his eye. So let's go ahead and close my carrot. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to go ahead in my bridge, and we've got all these berries and nuts down here. So I can go ahead and drag it down into Photoshop, bring it up. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, zoom in. I'm going to pick one of these berries that I want to kind of serve as my pupil. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to grab my elliptical marquee, which is kind of the round one. Now if I just draw a circle around it, you can see I'm not going to get a perfect shape. So I'm going to go ahead, Control D, and turn that off. Go ahead and click in the middle of this berry. I'm going to hit Alt and Shift at the same time and pull out. I'm going to get a perfect circle. Now I'm going to let go of my mouse. I'm going to let go of my keys. And I've got that selection. I can go ahead and do a copy. Bring it over here and let's do a paste. Now once again, it's pretty big, so I'm going to take and scale that down a little bit, holding Shift. That's not too bad. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and hit my commit. Now I want to go ahead and make these one single item. So I'm going to click on my layer with my blueberry, and I'm going to shift click my layer with my carrot to get them both at the same time. I'm going to right click, I'm going to say merge layers. So it's going to go ahead and make those one single item. Now that they're one single item, I can hit Alt. You see my cursor comes to two tiny arrows, so I can bring one over and make an exact copy of that second eyeball. So that's exactly what I want. If you wanted to, you could flip them all the way over. So kind of change your eyeballs that way. Up to you as to how you're going to make that one look. And let's go ahead and do a Control S and save what we have so far. So each of these is on their own layer. So when they're on their own layer, it allows you to move them independently. Let's go ahead and grab that nose piece first, next. So let's go ahead and grab these pairs. The pairs are a PNG, but we'd only want the middle pair. So let's go File and Open. Let's open with our Photoshop. And on this time, we're going to go ahead and Control Plus and zoom in. If you see, if I try and do a select subject this time, what will happen is it's going to select everything, which I don't want all those pairs. So I could go in and change the selection, or I can select it differently. I'm going to do a Control D and deselect. I'm going to go ahead and grab my magnetic lasso, and I'm going to draw a lasso around just what I want to keep. So I'm going to start here. You'll want to add little points. It'll make it a little bit easier, kind of makes those paths stick a little bit better. And it's going to automatically find the edges of that element. So kind of come up and around. So we get around the edges. Now I missed a little bit there, but I can go back and fix it. A little bit of goofiness happening there. Alright, so it's got to be complete circles. Now if you see, my selection isn't totally perfect. I did a Control Plus to zoom in. So what I'm going to do is going to add to my selection. So I'm going to grab this second one over. And I'm going to say I want to add this part in. So I'm actually going to draw a line along this section here. It has to be a complete circle, and it's going to go ahead and move that in for me. Now you can go ahead and change all these. If I hit spacebar, it'll give you my handle, my hand, so I can kind of see that grabber a little bit better. So I want to go ahead and add this section in as well. So I'm going to go ahead, grab and drag down. Alright, and that one looks much better. So for this one I've got a little bit too much, so I could go in here and do subtract from. And we're going to say I'm going to take out this section here. It's going to bring that in, so let's go ahead and add this other section back in. So taking time with selections will work in your favor, because that way you do not have to do quite as much cleanup work after the fact. So what I can do, got a little bit of extra down here. I'm not going to worry about that too much because it is clear. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that move tool, and what I can do is just copy, Control C to copy. Let's go over here to our fruit face. I'll close that one down. And a Control V to paste it in, and it's way big. So let's go ahead and hold that shift, bring it down, kind of make it a nose. So you can kind of see that it's sitting on top of my eyeballs right now, which is maybe something I don't necessarily want. So I'm going to go ahead and take and change that layer order so I can tell that it's on this layer. You can tell which layer you're on by turning those on and off. And take that layer and bring it down in between the eyeballs and the melon. And I'm going to go ahead and shrink it up just a little bit more. And maybe you want to rotate it just a little tiny bit, get one of those round, until you get the nose kind of where you want it to be. And enter. Alright, that looks ridiculous. Let's fix that a little bit. Enter, and maybe you want to put it in between your eyeballs. I kind of like that better. Alright, so I've got that kind of between my eyeballs. So I'm going to do a Control S and save. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and add his mouth. So I'm going to go ahead and close my pairs. And let's go ahead and grab this macaroon to use as a mouth. I'm going to do a file, open with, and do Photoshop. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this over. So edit and transform. Let's unlock it first. Let's do edit. Cancel. One more time. Edit, transform, and let's go ahead and flip it 180 degrees. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I need to get this background off. So there's a few different ways to do that. I could use my magic eraser. So because I've got pretty solid color here in the background, it will go ahead and grab everything that's pretty much that color. Now you see I've got a little bit of a problem because it did leave a little bit of that shadow around the outside. So what I can do is Control plus and zoom in. I can actually go grab my background eraser tool, and I can, whatever I click on is going to remove that similar color. So it's going to go ahead and grab that kind of halo effect that we've got going on, because it's looking for those similar colored pixels. I'm going to grab my plain old eraser and grab that chunk, because I don't really want that chunk. And I might just go through and clean up this just a little bit more. So it's up to you as to how you're going to do. Whoa, undo. Let's go ahead and fix that a little bit. So sometimes what I'll do is add another layer. So I'll go to add new layer, and I will, let's do it this way. We'll go ahead and add a solid color and move that down to the bottom. And let's go ahead and you can kind of see now where you've got kind of this weird kind of shadow going on. So I'm going to switch back to that layer, grab my eraser, and make sure I get rid of those little shadowy bits. Otherwise you're going to have funky things happening. Alright. So this is just kind of a quick and dirty way to do this. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and lose that color fill layer, hit delete. I'm going to go ahead and grab this layer, drag it up over my fruit face, and bring it down in. So I'm going to go ahead and close my berries. I don't need those anymore. I don't need my macaroon anymore. No, I don't need to save changes. Alright, so with my macaroon, I can go ahead and rotate it just a little bit. And maybe you want to squish it. This is one case where you can kind of squish things and you're not going to get too much trouble for proportion and those types of items. So kind of create a mouth shape. That's not terrible. And enter. It's a little bit like a Nike swoosh. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut this video into a second part. So let's do a Control S, and we will pick back up in just a few minutes.